Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the life-draining weapons and abilities in Fire Emblem. Life Drain has actually seen many changes throughout the series, and it all begins with good old Nosferatu. Nosferatu is a tome or magic spell, depending on what game you're playing. It initially came in Gaiden, where it was the only offensive spell, or the primary offensive spell for clerics. It had a 50% hit chance, not affected by terrain. It would just deal damage equal to the cleric's magic, and heal them back as much damage as they dealt. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Here you already see kind of the root of where life draining came from, but because it was only on clerics, it had such bad hit chance, and clerics generally, this was their only offensive ability. And you didn't really see it used that much, toxically. You also didn't necessarily see it used too much anyway, because no one plays Gaiden. But you had to attack a lot with it. You grew to hate it because it was 50-50. That's not really what we're talking about, though. What we're talking about is the amount that this tome breaks the game when it's strong. When it's too strong. You see it in Mystery of the Emblem. You see it occasionally pop up in the GBA Fire Emblems, where it's dark magic. But other than that, it's actually bounced between dark and light, interestingly enough. Mystery of the Emblem, it's really strong. GBA games, it's pretty strong, but in the Binding Blade, it weighs 6, but in Blazing Blade and Sacred Stones, it weighs 14, so that slows you down. It tries to limit how much you're able to double with it. Tries to, doesn't always succeed. Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, it's light magic, only usable by clerics. Radiant Dawn, it's actually S-rank light magic. Path of Radiance, it's A-rank. Really hard to get. You have like one unit that can use it. It's reading Riss, and then Oliver in Radiant Dawn. You have New Mystery of the Emblem, where it's very powerful. It's E-rank for female, but I think it's female only. Effectively personal for Lind. Awakening is where people know it from, where it's super broken, and we'll get into why later. And then after Awakening, they felt the need to drastically nerf Nosferatu in Fates, such that it can't crit, can't trigger skills, can't make follow-up attacks, and it still sees some modicum of use. I think that life-draining weapons and abilities and skills, they're strong, they're good, they make sense thematically, they're fun to use mechanically, but they walk a very interesting line in completely breaking the game. I talked about how javelins were the most game-breaking thing in Fire Emblem a couple videos ago. I still stand by that in terms of being game-warping, but in terms of game-breaking, maybe let's look into Life Drain, because what Life Drain allows you to do is, if it's good, if it's accurate, if it's powerful, you can enemy phase tank. Take a hit, take a lot of damage, life drain it all back, and just heal yourself back to full. Do that until either it breaks, or until you kill all the enemies, or until one of them kills you. It doesn't really feel good to use, unfortunately, I think is the biggest problem. Like, it feels great to use, but it also feels really... I don't know, it requires a specific level of setup to be able to get to work right, which is why I don't think it's like the end-all, be-all, most problematic thing. I'm going to turn down this volume a little bit more. But I do think it is definitely something that needs to be considered, and something that needs to be very heavily balanced around when you want to include it. This also includes things such as the Rune Sword, from the GBA games and Path of Radiance, technically, though I don't know if it actually appears. I don't remember where it appears in Path of Radiance. Dropped by Bertram. I have to 26, yeah. The Rune Sword in the GBA games of Path of Radiance. The Earth Sword in Genealogy and Thracia. Technically the Sword of Saros, though it's enemy only. And then you have things like the Plenitude combat art in Echoes, the Soul skill, in games where skills exist, and an offshoot of something like Moonlight, which I think is a more fair, more balanced version of a Nosferatu, though still with its own, give and takes to it. So, why is life drain problematic? Well, like I said, you can set up on enemy phase and potentially kill everything with it if you have a unit that's strong enough. The two requirements in order to do that are, one, you have to make sure that your Nosferatu won't run out, that it won't break, or that you have enough uses to get through. And two, you need to make sure that you're not getting doubled, because if you get doubled, then you get hit, you drain some life, you get hit again. You can avoid getting doubled either by one-shotting the enemy, or by just having sufficient speed to not get doubled. Now, in all of these games, where has it been most problematic? Where has it been most beneficial? Where has it been most useful? Where has it been most useless? I think, obviously, Gaiden, Shadows of Valencia, Nosferatu definitely was at its weakest. It was still useful, you still kind of just had to use it because your clerics had to attack to gain experience, at least in Gaiden they did. It was fine, but it wasn't great. You have stuff like Mystery of the Emblem and New Mystery of the Emblem, where it's good, it's strong. It can definitely transform your strategies around it, but it has limited uses, you don't get very many of them, and you don't really have any ways of keeping it available outside of using like hammer and staff on it. I think it's pretty well balanced. You get to choose one or two places where you get to use it fully, and then that's kind of it. That said, you do have, if I remember right, I think it's the light sphere or the star sphere? I think it's the light sphere in one of them that prevents weapons from losing durability, though I think that gets changed. No, the light sphere prevents enemy. No, that's a shadow dragon. That's not effective for Nosferatu, because Nosferatu doesn't exist in the same version as that star sphere. The star sphere in Fire Emblem 1, Fire Emblem 3 Book 1, and Fire Emblem 11 prevents weapons from losing durability while you have it in their inventory. That doesn't matter in Mystery of the Emblem and New Mystery of the Emblem, because the Star Sphere doesn't work like that anymore. The Star Sphere gives either stat bonuses or growth bonuses in those games. So I think it's balanced because you only get one or two. They're pretty far in between where you get them, and you're very limited on what units can use it. It's like just Linde, Yumina technically can, and maybe there's one or two other mages that can use it. Fire Emblem, GBA Fire Emblems, it's dark magic. Generally, you don't get your dark mages until like close to the second half of the game. Nosferatu is pretty rare, it's pretty heavy. So for instance, Binding Blade, you can only use it on Rei or Nimue. And neither of those are particularly bulky and game-breaking with it, because the enemies are so much stronger. But they're not like so much stronger, like abusively so, like in Awakening, where it then requires you to use it, which I'll get into later. But enemies are strong enough that, it's decent. You'll be able to survive pretty well with it if you use it at the right time, but you're very limited in how many uses you get, and it's not too broken. Genealogy of Holy War, Thracia, you don't really get too much of it either. I think Thracia, you have it on Sarah. Thracia, Genealogy, but mostly Thracia, you're going to need probably look at the Earth Sword, or Land Sword, I guess, is the new translation. Where, in Genealogy, it only has 10 uses at a time, so you can't really use it too much. It's really expensive to repair. but it's nice to have. In Thracia, it's the personal weapon of Nana, and you can do some crazy shenanigans with Vantage Earth Sword, or no, Wrath Earth Sword. Wrath on Nana with the Earth Sword means you'll take a hit and you'll immediately crit back and usually KO the enemy because the Earth Sword is really strong and it fully heals you back. So the only restriction is, well, if you miss, you're probably dead because the next enemy is going to kill you. But if you don't, it provides some really toxic strategies and is really strong. Rune Sword, now that we're talking about GBA, generally is not super useful. You get it pretty late in the game if you do, aside from Sacred Stones, where you can get it in Tower of Volney Floor 1 as early as like Chapter 9. It targets on resistance, which is kind of nice. It counts as dark magic for Magic Trinity, Magic Triangle. Can't inflict crits unless wielder initiates a triangle attack. Interesting, I didn't know that about it. Depending on what game you're in, it may or may not fully activate based on your strength. I think it, or it takes half strength at range. I always confuse this and the light brand rules with how it specifically works. It's pretty useful. It's good to give to a sword wielding unit so that I can hit through resistance. Generally, you're not going to use it too much, just specifically for the life drain, and because it's limited to 15 uses and you only really have one accessible, you're rarely going to use it as degenerate enemy phasing. Awakening is where it breaks. Awakening is where it breaks, and Fates is where they backpedaled hard to fix it. In Awakening, you have units that can become far stronger than any unit had ever been up to that point. Like Radiant Dawn units could get quite strong. You could get pretty dang strong in Radiant Dawn. Awakening, you can get even stronger. Awakening is when they were fully dedicated to, let's, take off some of the breaks. Let's give, units can cap all their stuff at 40, 80 HP, stuff like this. And they threw Lunatic Mode at you, which says, hey, all the enemies, they're going to scale up massively as well. They tried to limit Nosferatu by making it dark magic, meaning only Dark Mage, Sorcerer, or someone with the skill to use dark magic could use it. Okay. You're going to have it on a Sorcerer, maybe like a DLC class, and that's about it. What's the worst that could happen? You know where I'm getting with this. Robin. Robin, reclassed to Sorcerer, given plenty of bulk, plenty of HP, defense, resistance, strong magic, good pair-up bots for some extra defense and magic, maybe. Robin breaks it. Breaks the game with it. There's a reason Nos Tank became a strategy, became a name of a strategy, Nos Tank Robin. You could do it with Tharja as well by default, but Tharja wasn't really that good at it because you didn't really have the bulk for it. Obviously, it's Awakening. You can level anyone to be anything, but Tharja wasn't great at it initially. You had to kind of put the effort in to make her there, or you could just stick Robin over in Sorcerer as soon as you get the skills you want. But you say, okay, well, this only has 20 uses, right? Arms Thrift. Arms Thrift. The level 1, I believe, mercenary skill, Arms Thrift. So all you need to do is stick Robin or whoever through mercenary. Just get to the level where you can reclass out a mercenary. Suddenly you have Arms Thrift. And then you have a luck times 2% chance of not using up a weapon use. Sure, that'll make it last a little longer. Well, a Robin with high luck can hit 50 luck. You can have infinite use weapons with an Arms Thrift Robin. And so the entire strategy for a lot of people, maybe not the optimal strategy for everyone, but for a lot of people, the way they beat Lunatic and Lunatic Plus was level up a Robin with high luck, get them Arms Thrift from Mercenary, get them into Sorcerer, give them a Nosferatu Tome. And from that minute on, you have won the game. Certain enemies could still kill you. You could still miss. You could still get doubled or crit. But you were able to win the game. Anyone was able to win the game. It's like to training Wolf and Sedgar levels of win the game. Almost idiot-proof win the game. Sorcerer, Robin, Arms Thrift, Nosferatu. Because Sorcerer also gets Vengeance, which activates all the freaking time to deal damage equal to the HP you lost. So you just heal all that back guaranteed. Or I guess it's half the HP you lost, but still. If you wanted some other good combat skills, Ignis is a great one. Deal damage based on your bulk. If you're really bulky, you're good at Nos tanking. And so, Nosferatu was deemed so problematic, so game-breaking, so just take the whole game and throw it out the window because you have Nosferatu. Then in Fates, they decided, hey, we need to include this spell. The spell is coming in. We're going to mark it as dark magic, so only the Norian mages can use it. Or maybe they didn't. I forget. D star. Dark mages, sorcerers, and units with Shadow Gift. Yeah. Only Norian mages can use it. Only key Norian mages, not even like Dark Knights or one that would have extra bulk. We're going to make it not double. We're going to make it not able to crit. We're not able to trigger offensive skills. If you want to use this defensively, you still can. It will very much restrict your ability to use it effectively. It's still useful. It's still effective. It's still good. But another way that they broke Nosferatu is by making units' offenses, for the most part, far exceed unit defenses in Fates. Anyone who's played Fates will tell you it feels like all the units are really squishy because they don't have that much HP. Only a couple units like Effie or Benny or Xander or Leo have the bulk really to take multiple hits in a turn because units are far more offensively bent. It's a far more lethal game, it's a far more dangerous game, I guess, to play. And so Nosferatu is not necessarily as strong there as well. Did they go overkill in correcting for Nosferatu? Maybe. But they certainly did what they set out to do in terms of making the ideal strategy no longer just Nos tank. And then it does come back in 3 houses, but in 3 houses it's E rank light magic, 12 uses. There's some strategies you can do with Nosferatu tanking, dodge tanking, with like a Sacred One Byleth, Chosen One, Sacred Saint, whatever it's called, Byleth, with Nosferatu and stuff like that. It works, it's effective, but 12 uses, limited power, 3 houses stats go so high that it just kind of outclasses what you can do with Nosferatu. As you'll also note, in every game, up until Awakening, Awakening was the first game to nerf Nosferatu actively, by making the HP that you got half of what you dealt. But it didn't matter. We have the Earth Sword, which is basically just Nosferatu, but for Nana. We have the Rune Sword, which is kind of a weaker version of it, less useful because of limited uses. Sword of Saros is enemy only. Plenitude is a weapon art, so prevents you from doubling and can't be used in enemy phase. Soul is random chance. It's still useful. It still definitely can help. And that's part of the other follow-up for Nosferatu tanking and Awakening, is if you give them Soul from Hero, if you level Mercenary to Hero and then switch over to Sorcerer, then you can just get that as well. Moonlight, I'm just going to talk about it just really briefly because it's not quite, doesn't quite fit in, and this is already like a 20-minute video. Moonlight gives you 20% of the wielder's max HP after combat that you initiate, so it can't be used on enemy phase. It's only good for a little bit of a small heal. Still ends up finding some use, but nowhere near as powerful as Nosferatu. And there's some other skills and whatnot that give life drain as well. So, what have we learned about life-stealing effects? Well, the primary limiting factor is uses. Yeah. Awakening, you may say, yeah, Awakening broke it with your powerful skills and broke it with how strong units can get, but really the way that Awakening broke Nosferatu is with Arms Thrift. The combination of Arms Thrift with Nosferatu made it so you could spam it endlessly, plus the fact that you could buy it easily from several places in the game. You get something like a Versus Knight for free, which is just a slightly stronger but less durable version of Nosferatu. Awakening gave you so many uses of Nosferatu that it was too much. The primary limiting factor that should be used for a life-stealing ability in a game like Fire Emblem is uses. It should be accessible, it should be strong, but it should be limited in how much you can use it. Three Houses did this pretty well, limiting uses to 12. The secondary limiting factor is power. If it's not powerful, or if it's not accurate, if it's not reliable enough, then people aren't going to rely on it. People aren't going to use it. If it's not strong enough to do everything you need it to, if it's not strong enough to tank a full enemy phase, people aren't going to use it. If it's not accurate enough, people aren't going to rely on it on enemy phase. Gaiden, Shadows of Valencia made it inaccurate and weak. That's another effective way of limiting its power. If it's very limited on who can use it, then it's still going to be good, but it's not going to be potentially game-breaking. Like, it could still break the game, but take those other things in mind as well. GBA Fire Emblem, limiting it to Dark Mages. Dark Mages having very limited other good spells, depending on what game you're playing. If you're playing Blazing Blade, then yes, they have Luna, but you have like 2 Luna Tomes in that entire game. That is an effective limiting factor as well. Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn went the extreme way of saying not only is it very limited on what units you can get and very limited on availability in the game, but it also, you can barely get access to it because it requires S rank light magic, or A rank light magic, which takes forever because when you promote and get the light skill, you get E rank light magic. So they effectively removed it from the game, except for people who dump all their arm skulls onto Reese or something like that. Too far. Did Fates go too far? Fates said, basically, this is the one use for this weapon. You can't use it offensively, you can't crit with it, you can't get more value than you think you will, you can't double with it. And so I think weapon-wise, these are, all else being equal to like Awakening or whatnot, these are, in my opinion, fair limitations. It kind of sets it in stone that its main purpose is for Nosferatu tanking, or for just quickly healing up on like killing one enemy. And those are its 2 use cases. The problem comes in Fates, and the reason why it's so much less used is because, again, the durability issue. Sorcerers and whatnot are so much weaker. Enemies can just one-round you really easily. It's on higher difficulties. It's a lot more skills-based and skills-dependent of a game. You can't necessarily get that much use out of Nosferatu tanking unless you set up things up in a very specific way. So yeah, that's life-draining weapons in a nutshell. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below what type of weapon you'd like to see me summarize or go over next. I have been really enjoying doing these weapon looks in these series, and I think there's plenty more stuff for me to talk about. Subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any of those, and until next time, this is Mithril Zenith, signing out.